Hey guys, welcome back. Tim Kaine, my ideas that got rejected. I hope this will be a fun little relaxing one where we can just. I'm really curious what Tim Kaine ideas got rejected, and if they would still be viable today, or if maybe they just weren't viable at that point, at that time period, but maybe now they would be. I don't know what to expect. Watch him talk about a
Hi,
hentai game.
everyone. It's me, Tim.
Hey Tim.
Today I want to talk about my ideas that got rejected from my own games. And I'm going to start all the way back with Fallout,
Furry Fallout
which is now,
Fellatio.
almost 30 years ago that project got started. And I was project lead or design director or
Mm-hmm.
game director on a lot of these titles, and my own ideas didn't make it in. So I've done a lot of videos where I talk about learning from failure, and I talk about how you can learn from other people's failures. So learn from mine. Learn from ideas I wanted to put into games that got thrown out. Let's start with Fallout. I know I've talked before
Just
that
just wait until he mentions like I wanted to make a game where you played as an alchemist and only used potions for combat. If I hear any of my ideas for Colton Chronicles in this video, I probably will cry. I will turn off my camera and I will cry. Because if they get rejected from Tim Kaine, there's probably a good reason why they wouldn't make it into a game.
when we switched from GURPS and Chris Taylor came up with a new attribute system, it was the main attributes, and then I suggested adding luck. At the next team meeting where I was explaining what this new system was that we are going to be implementing, I realized that the attributes now spelled out A-slips. So I told the team right then and there, this is great. We're going to switch to this new system and we're going to call it A-slips. Well, Jason Swin came up to me afterwards and he just went, you know, that also spells out special. And yeah, I admitted that was a better acronym, and that's the one we went with.
I mean, that's the one that everybody knows. Everybody knows the special system when they think of Fallout. A-slips. I mean, sometimes you can miss simple things like that, but that's once in a lifetime moment where it's like, oh shit, we have a perfect name for a new attribute system. I mean, special is a fantastic name. Arguably one of the best names for an attribute system in an RPG game. And it's so perfect too because not only is it an easy to remember word, but you can build it into the lore of Fallout like they've done, right? What makes you special? I love it. It's so perfect. Special makes you special. Also equivalence, maybe the systems were not good for this specific game as opposed to just. I mean, I agree. I always say there's no bad design. There's just design that isn't good for that specific game that you're talking about, or that specific time period of the game coming out, or that specific genre. There's no bad design. Just design that won't work in this case. The on the spectrum kind of special, also yes. For many of you in chat.
Better acronym, and that's the one we went with. But I always think back on A-slips. Similarly, and I know I've mentioned this before, I had pushed for Fallout ending with a party. That you come back to Vault 13, you've gotten them a water chip, you've taken care of the mutant army and the master, and everybody has a big party for you, and there's cake and balloons. That got rejected in favor of Leonard Barsky's idea that the Overseer kick you out. In hindsight, better idea. But at the time, I was like, I don't know if people are going to buy this.
Yeah, I mean it happens. I mean, I think the game design as a whole is just a very speculative part of game development. You know, you're operating off of tons of past experiences, tons of firsthand or secondhand experiences with people playing other games, right? Or watching like people on YouTube comment sections or Twitch chat, watching how the general public receives different things. And that isn't a guarantee of success or that your ideas are going to be good or that the ideas that you've chosen to put in the game, because it's not only about you having ideas, but about you properly organizing and managing which ideas make it into the final product, you may be wrong, right? Or there may be something that is just clearly better. And yeah, you can grumble a bit, but the better thing is the better thing. Jesus Christ.
Let's jump in up to Arcanum, the next project I worked on. I've already mentioned how the original design doc was attributes and skills cost more points for higher levels of them. But a lot of people didn't like that because it meant that you could go up a level, be given a few points, and nothing you wanted to spend points on used all those points. So people felt weird.
What's this? It's people upstairs moving tables and chairs without the fuzzy things on the feet. So fucking obnoxious. It's so obnoxious. I hate. Look, it wouldn't even bother me too much if I knew that it wouldn't go into the microphone, but it does go into the microphone. The slip, whatever the term is, I don't know. Fuzzy things works for me. But yeah, the things that you put on the bottom so that you can move shit around a hardwood floor or a tiled floor without sound. Let me go back a bit.
Go up a level, be given a few points,
Chairs.
And nothing you wanted to spend points on used all those points. So people felt weird having points left over. Even though we allowed you to let them roll over into the next level, people didn't like that, and we went to the 1-point system. I have a whole video on that.
Yeah, little things like that can actually have a big impact on how players feel with your game. Games are emotions, right? And when you're doing game design, you're creating emotional experiences within the player, and little points of frustration like that can even just be a result of one or two numbers or a seemingly innocuous design decision can ripple out and make the player feel really bad about the progression of the game or about in some cases, the itemization of the game. So that's why feedback matters. That's why not designing it in a vacuum. That's why not believing that you are the best designer in the world and only you can have ideas is also a very healthy thing. Yeah, by the way, anybody can have ideas. A game designer's job is not to have ideas. Don't let anybody, if you're going into the industry, don't let anybody tell you differently. It is not a game designer's job to have ideas. Peter Molyneux, you're hearing this. That's a good example. Sounds like you know the company I'm dealing with. Trust me, I've been there. I can empathize. Feedback is very important. I have 5 game testers. Feedback is very important. Whose job is it to have ideas? And hey, Colostrum, the teams. And honestly, the people that you show the game to. Anybody can have good ideas. The game designer's job is to organize, manage, and blueprint those ideas. It's their call. You could even say the lead designer or the creative director, but let's just say the design team is the one to decide this idea is good. This fits within the rest of the game systems. It adheres to our pillars and the general emotions that we're trying to achieve. Now we will balance this within the rest of the game, change a couple things to make it fit better, and then blueprint it for the rest of the team to create. Once it's created, balance it, test it, feedback it. Who owns the game, the player or the person who made it? I mean, yeah, by the way, even players can have great ideas. But just, there is a distinction between ideas and design. And while they go hand in hand, not all people with great ideas will make great game designers. And not all people who are great game designers have great ideas themselves. I think especially with players, there's a common misconception that somebody who can make a really good Reddit post with a game idea is then going to become a great game designer. No, sometimes I wish that my only job as a game designer was to have ideas, but that is probably the most minimal percentage of the job in many cases. Most of it's documents, spreadsheets, clearing up communication issues. It's kind of boring. I don't know, sometimes a lot of game design is just boring. I find it fun, but there's just a lot of menial work that goes behind it.
My system got thrown out, the 1-point system got put in. Something I thought I've mentioned, but in case I haven't, is I had an entire design for additional tech skills, not just the 4 that we shipped with. There was a whole range of them, which were things like combine mechanical, combine advanced tech, repair mechanical, repair advanced tech, create bullets, create dynamite, create batteries, create fuel, and all of these were tech skills that gave you tech points when you spent points in them. So you'd go into the tech area on the magic tech meter, and all of them were tied into the orthogonal skill advancement: beginner, expert, master. So you not only could spend points on them, but you could go do quests, and that would open up new and better things you could do with skill. That got thrown out. We reduced it to 4 tech skills that we shipped with.
That's good for skill.
And the rest got thrown out in favor of Jason Anderson's tech schematics. Better idea.
True.
I have a whole video on those schematics, and they're gorgeous. But my idea got rejected, and I was like,
Well, you know, it still kind of made it into the Fallout universe eventually, right? With crafting bullets in which game first introduced crafting bullets? Was that New Vegas? Either way, made it into the game eventually. It being that people play a game, have an idea, and then make a game. The ideas were conceived through their playtime, and other player dev comes along and they bounce ideas that create new ideas. Maybe my game, but having others tell me some ideas can help. I'm the dev, so I must make a choice. When they tell me, then I will think about it. Yep, we're doing to see how it will work. And I didn't think when I made the gravity glove, I made the gravity glove because all the testers don't use it. That tells me it's useless. I think useless is a tough term, right? Because there are sometimes, if you implement a new feature into your game that opens up new ways to play, but does not detract from what is required to beat the game, then you haven't really implemented something that is useless, at least not to the people who would want to use it, right? So, you know, especially with an RPG game, you do want those variety of ways to play, and in many cases a player may never interact with it. How many people played Fallout, you know, some of like the recent ones where you can craft ammo but never crafted ammo? Well, you know, because it wasn't made for you who never uses it, it was made for the players who do use it, or who play with challenge modes, or they play on survival difficulty where maybe that's more useful to them. You know, so there are sometimes things that you can implement into a game that may not impact the gameplay loop and might be seen as some as a waste of time because of that, but they open up new ways to play, and that enhances the build variety and depth that players have when choosing how they want to play the game. Play Monster Hunter as a boast and never use a sword. I mean, that's exactly a good point. It's useless if it never has uses for combat, so why have it? Well, I mean, for your game, right? But there could also be some fun platforming sections that you do where, well, you've implemented a level that now doesn't have any combat, but might have uses for solving a puzzle, or for opening up doors, right? Or for climbing up to secret areas. There could be plenty of uses that may not fit with the core pillar of combat for your game, but you might find that it is fun to use the systems that you have in your game to have environmental damage, to have a new pillar to your game, right? Which is maybe some of these extra environmental uses. If something is fun, I would seriously consider ways to enhance your gameplay by utilizing it, or to save that idea for a game where it makes more sense.
The next project I did, Temple of Elemental Evil, when we made the world map, it was like Hamlet, the Moat House, the Temple, Nulb. There was nothing up here in the northwest corner of the map. And I created some filler locations for up there, for some things to do when you were lower level, and then a few things to do when you were high level that just had nothing to do with the temple. Those got removed early when we realized we had absolutely no time to make those locations and to get them populated and balanced and bug fixed.
Yeah, it happens.
And subsequently, you know, the game has been called out for not having a lot of stuff to do outside of the temple. Hamlet was not as very exciting, but a lot of those Hamlet people were going to send you off to quests. I think one of them exists where someone asks you to go take care of some spiders, and you do go to a little map that has a forest with some spiders on it. There were supposed to be a lot more of those and a lot more detailed. Similarly, the vignettes were also supposed to be more detailed, but we just did not have time for that. I know I've talked about in WildStar, I was a big proponent of advancing more of the social aspects of an MMORPG because that was what set MMORPGs apart
It's true.
from their RPG cousins.
Yeah.
So I wanted the newspaper, and I've talked about that in a video where there's going to be a newspaper that was based on your server, but then all the other servers, it could collect news from across all the different servers, and then local news from just your server. There'd be a section on your guild, cool things going on.
That's
the
a good
auction
idea.
house would be done in there through classifieds. Never got done.
I mean, it's a lot of work to make something like that, but it is also really cool to have something like that. It's a shame that, I mean, it's everything regarding WildStar is a shame. It's a shame that that doesn't still exist.
Similarly, on WildStar, we were making an internal video, and I know if you watch the blooper video I did for the Outer Worlds, there's a section that's called internal video. Sometimes we made videos to show the team, to bring everyone up to speed on what we had done. I was putting together a video for WildStar towards the end of when I was there, and I set it to the Scissor Sisters song, Sex and Violence. And while that song played, sex and violence, and all these hardcore lyrics, there was a video of the player going around doing what players do in MMOs and killing monsters and taking their stuff. Never got used.
That's pretty good. I think too that he brings up something that is often not done in teams, which is when you do like sprint retrospectives, or when you have that meeting at the end of a sprint to talk about what you got done and to show it off. Either make a video for it, or better yet, just show it. Like, just especially with screen sharing being so common now, whereas when he's talking about this, screen sharing wasn't really that big. Just screen share. Just okay. Jimmy over, who's the artist, show us what you worked on, and he's got the engine open, he's prepared to show off what he made. Maybe it was like a level designer, they're going to show off their level. That's great. It's like you said, it just gets everybody up to speed about what's being done, and it's kind of motivating when you see the rest of your team making progress, especially if, let's say sometimes as a designer, I'm just stuck in a spreadsheet for literally 2 weeks. It's not that exciting. It's really fucking frustrating. It takes me a lot of time to do some, big balancing work on a data-heavy game, and it requires a lot of thought. It's not great to show off. And honestly, seeing the rest of my team make really cool progress in the background while I'm doing this helps to motivate me and keep my spirits up. You feel part of the team and part of a whole on that. So if you're working in a company, in a game dev company, make sure that if you don't have it, try to be a proponent for sharing progress every, even 2 weeks or something, so twice a month. It can really help the team's morale.
I think I mentioned in the South Park video that at one point we were trying to make combat different, and I made an entire new combat system that did combat turns the way we shipped with, but when you were done with your turn, you did not move back to your original spot. I called it like unresetting combat. You basically stayed wherever you were, which meant you might run over here and then you'd stay, and then somebody could come and hit you, so now they're on the other side of you. It made the combat scene more frenetic, but also more tactical. You had to think, where am I going to end up when I finish this ability? If this isn't a ranged ability, I'm going to end up over there. It was interesting. We didn't go with it. I think we went with a really good one. Part of me is like, I wonder what it would have been like if we just put a flag in saying, don't reset your position after combat.
Didn't Fractured But Whole do that? Where you used an ability and it moved you? Did I misinterpret something? He was talking about Stick of Truth, because he worked on Stick of Truth, where they didn't have that positional, but in Fractured Butthole they did have that positional movement where using a skill would also move you, up 2 places or something. I think both games work, honestly. I think both games have enjoyable combat for different reasons. But I think Stick of Truth is the better game. Stick of Truth was such a good South Park game. Fractured Butthole? Exactly, yes. It was the second South Park game.
For Pillars of Eternity, I had suggested that because the Watcher was supposed to see and talk to the undead, that rather than just say he did that, or say the player was doing that, yes, she can actually talk to undead, she can talk to dead from beyond the veil. Show it, visualize it. So
Baldur's Gate 3 did a good
if
job
you
with
came
that.
across a trap and you detected it, instead of you just seeing the trap outline on the ground, you'd see a ghost figure walk, and then the trap would go off in ghostly translucent form, and maybe they'd fall in a pit,
I
or
like that.
maybe
Good idea.
a spike would come out and hit the ghost form and they'd die. Or if you found a secret door, it would actually show this ghost person walk up to the bookcase and pull a lever, and a ghostly bookcase would swing forward. All this could be done with shaders, so we didn't need any new animations or anything. It was all done with shaders, but each one would have to be every trap and every secret door.
Custom,
you'd have to make sure it looked okay in that view. But it was one more thing on the checklist. It's too much to do. We didn't end up doing it.
Good idea.
However, when I went to Outer Worlds, I had a similar idea for any skill that you had that was boosted by a companion. So if you got a few extra points to lockpick or persuasion because of a companion you had, then I was going to say whenever that skill succeeded just because of that boost from the companion, we would visualize it. Maybe if you were in a dialogue with someone and you used persuasion and you got a bonus to that persuasion from one of your companions, when it showed you say the line, right before it showed you say the line you picked for companion, so you press that line that said persuasion next to it, it would show your companion lean in and go, basically he was giving you advice, and you go, persuade line, and then it would succeed, and that was your visual clue that skill worked because you had the companion. Similarly, if you're picking a lock and the companion boosted your skill and that's what made you be able to pick this lock, either they'd lean in or you just hear them go, don't forget those tumblers are a little tricky. It would just be your reminder that you're succeeding, right?
Yeah, no, I think this is good, and I wanted to mention with like the conversation aspect, this was one of my biggest gripes, and still is, with Baldur's Gate 3, where you're supposed to feel like a party of characters, and maybe you're like a wizard or something. I don't know. You're like an int character, right? You're full up on intelligence, but you have like no charisma. But you need to pass a persuasion check. If you're in tabletop, your other character could interject. But in Baldur's Gate 3, you can't, and it's just kind of annoying that the person you choose to initiate the conversation is pretty much the only person in the conversation, which I hated. I think that I'm hoping that with their next RPG game they find a resolution to this, because even I prototyped something in Unreal like a couple years ago that was no, it's shortly after Baldur's Gate 3 came out. So whenever that came out, I prototyped a system that would allow you to interchange characters based on what you needed with that time, and then it would switch the dialogue options for that character. Because Baldur's Gate 3 does have the dialogue options for specific characters. You just can't switch characters during that discussion. Are you streaming tomorrow? No, I'm not. Nope, I'm taking the weekend off.
Right now, because of that companion, I really liked that.
It's
feedback.
A good, yeah, I like this idea.
It was too much to do, especially the in dialogue additional cinematics, and it got pushed away. Similarly, for the Outer Worlds, we were making an internal video, the one that you see in the blooper reel. I'll link it below. I'd originally come up with a slightly different video that I set to the song Pumped Up Kicks, and the assistant producer who made the video we used, she did it all in her own time, and she knocked it out in like one evening. Damn. And it was amazing. And I'm like, forget mine, we're going with yours. And I even said, how did you do that? And she was like, oh, I have a degree in film studies. And I was like, it was like found money. I was like, from now on, you're in charge of all these trailers, you do whatever you want, don't listen to me. But occasionally I think back and I go, I wonder what it would have been like with that Pumped Up Kick song in a Outer Worlds trailer.
Yeah, it's hard to let go of your baby sometimes,
So, what's the lesson to all this besides you learn from failure and learn from my failure? I think a big lesson is you have to realize that all your ideas are not going to make it into the game.
Yep.
Other people have better ideas than you. Even if you're the game director, even if you're the lead designer or the design director, programming director, it doesn't matter. Sometimes your ideas will get replaced with other ideas that are better, and that's fine.
It's not only fine, it's good, and you need to remember that replacing your idea with something that is better from somebody else not only makes the game better, but it makes that person feel as if they had more impact on the game, which increases loyalty towards the company, it increases morale, it makes you look better as a director and designer, that you're approachable and are open to new and better ideas. I mean, it has a ton of cascading positive effects on the team, not the least of which is making the game better, which is everybody's goal in the first place, or it should be everybody's goal. So there's tons of positive effects. You should never turn on a better idea just because it's not your idea.
But then everybody here has to understand the corollary. Not everything in a game is something that the game director thought of, and in some cases may not have even wanted. There were things I wanted in some of my games that I didn't get, not because they weren't a good idea, but because we ran out of time and we went with a different idea just because it was possible to be implemented.
Yep.
So when you see ideas in games, realize not all of them came from the game director.
I have had to explain that a lot, where it's like, somebody's like, why would you ever design it like this? So this would be so much better. Like, well, if you look in the design document, the exact way you want it is the way that it was designed. And that would have taken too much time. This was the backup. I'm not happy. You're not happy. Nobody's happy. This is the way it is.
And the ones that are in there may not have been ones the game director wanted.
Yep.
But understand that no matter how high you are up in the hierarchy, you won't get all your things in a game. So, and sometimes for very good reason. Don't make me say A slips one more time.
Special
Anyway,
is so much better.
Learn from my failure.
Another great video from Tim. That was a good one. A lot of good stories. I mean, I don't even think that some of these were specifically his failure as much as they were somebody else just had a better idea, right? I don't think that's a failure. I mean, if he had never said, what was it? It was Ace, whatever his idea was that got turned into special. If he hadn't said that, that wouldn't have triggered the other person to think, oh wait, this spell's special, and then we wouldn't have had it. So his enthusiasm for this new attribute naming system was what led to special. You know, he got the assist, right? That's not a failure. That's what a team is for. Your team is there to make the best game they can. And if you didn't need other people on the team to make the game good, then you wouldn't need a team in the first place. You could just do it all alone. And I think that in most cases, the best games that are out there and the best ideas were never the result of one person's input only. That's why you have a team. And you have to rely on them. You have to trust them. You have to rely on them. And if you're there for them, they will be there for you too. So, yeah, good video. Thank you for watching that one. If you're watching on YouTube, I will catch you later. So take care, YouTube. Bye-bye.